Welcome back to the Centered on Buffalo podcast. I'm your host, Eric Wood, and this will be a solo episode here today. We'll do a quick update from the weekend in Buffalo last week, calling the Bills game against the Bears. And then we're going to go through some questions that we got from some of our loyal listeners, some of our followers through Twitter. And we're going to have some fun with those today. This week's episode is brought to you by Dano's Seasoning. It's my favorite seasoning out there. They have all pro level flavor with all natural ingredients. That makes it a winning combination. Get you some at one of your local retailers or on their website, danosseasoning.com. All right. So last weekend had the opportunity to go up on Friday, played in the Labatt Blue Golf Scramble. Shout out to Labatt Blue, always taking care of me, and got to play in the Labatt Golf Scramble. I stacked a team for that one with some pretty strong golfers. We came in second. First place was minus 18. We were in second at minus 14. It was pouring down rain. Pretty tough course at Diamond Hawk right by the airport. I don't know, maybe some cheating involved, maybe not. Either way, got the second place trophy. Get a Blackstone delivered to the house. Pretty nice gift from that Labatt tourney. And then afterwards hit up 911 Tavern, got some wings. And look, they were incredible. And we've gotten so many suggestions to go get 911 wings, and they were awesome. We might get to some more wing stuff later in the podcast. The Bills-Bears game on Saturday was a clunker. It truly was, and it's the Bears' second preseason game, so a lot of their young guys a little more acclimated. The Bills just a ton of rust, fundamental errors, but the biggest thing to me were all the pre-snap penalties. I mean, the Bills were double digits in penalties, and a lot of those were pre-snap penalties where, hey, we could talk about how bad the offensive line was or some of the quarterbacks, but when you're constantly backing yourself up and then the defense knows that you're going to be throwing the football, it can be tough in those situations, especially when you're not game planning. So give the Bears some credit. They beat the Bills down at home on their field, but this doesn't shake my confidence in the least bit in this Bills team. Josh Allen looked sharp to start the game. Loved a bunch of what I saw from individual players out there. We can get into more of that at a different time, but there were some guys on the outside that we wanted to see catch footballs. Keon Coleman did, Shakir did, Kincaid did, and then that little bubble to Curtis Samuel, and to see his explosiveness, that's exciting to me. Now, the run game wasn't there. James Cook and Ray Davis, I mean, they couldn't get anything going on the ground. Josh said after the game they only had 4 run plays up for the game. And so, look, it is what it is. They were dialed in on those run plays. Chicago's defense, Chicago also had one of the top rush defenses on the NFL last year, and those holes weren't there, but this does not shake my confidence in this Bills run game, which I expected to be good again this year. It was good last year. So this doesn't shake my confidence at all heading into the season, but it's just one of those deals where, look, they laid a clunker in a preseason game. I assume that this week in Pittsburgh, the starters will get most of their work against the Steelers in that joint practice, and maybe Josh doesn't play in the game because they'll be able to have that controlled environment in practice where Josh isn't taking any shots. But we'll see how Sean McDermott wants to manage this preseason. Obviously, he was not happy after last game, and I said it on the radio. This is going to be one of those deals where Sean McDermott's going to have a chance in the preseason to give them a lot of teachable moments out there. And so, look, they're going to get back to work. They got humbled a little bit, but I hope it doesn't shake their confidence one bit, because it hasn't shaken mine at all. Sunday, got a chance to go play Oak Hill, rocking the t-shirt for those watching on YouTube right now. Got to go play Oak Hill. We got our second lightning delay of the round on hole number 16, so we got pulled off, but that place is absolutely special. We had to go drive down to Buffalo. We went to Jim Kelly's Gala that night for his golf tournament. It was truly special. I got an award there. Jim about brought me to tears, bringing me up on stage, give me an award for always continuing to support what they do through Kelly for Kids and serving that Western New York community, and then also for showing up and playing each year. So that was really cool to get an award on Sunday night. I sang on stage, sang Should Have Been a Cowboy. We missed Bob Greco, but the Bob Greco band was there as always, and I sang with the band. They always do an incredible job. And then the golf tournament on Monday is always a blast. You see everyone from Shooter McGavin to Chris Berman to former NFL players and everybody in between. And we came, I believe we tied for third, and our last hole was a par 5, and we made par. We couldn't get it done at the end. If we make eagle, we tie for the win. Instead, we make par, we tie for third, lose in a scorecard playoff. So it didn't come home with a trophy this year, but that's okay. I won it last year. Again, for those watching on YouTube, that's one of the Jim Kelly Golf Tournament trophies. It's a bronze buffalo statue, hand sculpted, and it's one of the coolest trophies out there. So I got to get one last year, and I actually got one for getting the award this year. So pretty special weekend heading up to Pittsburgh this week. Another special golf opportunity for me. Looks like I'm going to be playing Oakmont on Friday, top 5 golf course in the country. So I'm super pumped about that, and then excited to get up there and call another Bills game. And so let's dive into some of these follower questions. And I appreciate everyone who submitted a question. Couldn't get to all of them, just being sensitive of time of the podcast, but we will do this throughout the season. So if I didn't get to you today, then we can always get it down the road. So we had a very similar question from Don DePero and also James Wise, and they were basically asking about center quarterback. So Don's tweet was, Eric, love your podcast. Thank you for that. Hey, explain the chemistry a center and quarterback must achieve in order for the entire offense to operate cohesively and smoothly, and go into detail about the short snap process for shotgun formation. Thanks. Okay, so you build a relationship with quarterbacks, and we've heard Josh Allen and and Connor McGovern say that Mitch Morse snapped his underneath centers snaps a little to the left. Josh has gotten used to that, but that's pretty much been the only center he's had throughout his career. And so when I look at this, there's been a couple fumbled snaps throughout the preseason practices. That doesn't concern me. They'll get on the same page there. And then it looks like any issues with the short snap, Connor McGovern has solved. And look, it's muscle memory. And once you get those shotgun snaps down, once you've done them enough times, it just becomes second nature to you. Yeah, will one slip every now and then, of course, but whether you're wearing gloves or get sweat on your hand, there might be a touch off here or there, but that's not going to concern me. Connor McGovern played a ton of center at Penn State, and for him to pop back in the pivot, it doesn't concern me. So it takes some time, just because you have to be in complete unison. There's different movements that the center is going to have, and even the quarterback, how, if it's outside zone to the right, he's got to take off and run to get that ball to the running back. So all that stuff has to get on the same page, but you work this so much throughout the season and walkthroughs that come week one, I have no concerns about that center quarterback exchange. Now, when I was watching some of the backup centers, and I believe it was Alec Anderson, and look, he's a player that I'm extremely excited about moving into the future and being a piece for this Bills offensive line, but it seemed like his snaps were coming back really hot, really fast to the quarterback, to where it just wasn't clean back there. And at times, those quarterbacks would just much more likely would prefer, a softer ball that's easier to catch, because their eyes are down the field. They're worried about a bunch of other things. So that is one thing that I did notice throughout the game as far as the center position. Next one comes Jason, the Bills fan from Scotland. And he said, how soft do you think this rebuild is? Are we really in year one of a 2-year makeover, or is this just a case of moving on from old and expensive starters and we're heading to the big game, baby? So I think this Bills team has as good of a shot of getting to the Super Bowl as they've had, these last 4 or 5 years. This rebuild does not scare me. I mean, we're moving on from some guys that are familiar faces. Yes, I think they're going to get a little bit more athletic in some spots. They're definitely going to get younger. But when you have Josh Allen at quarterback and you have all of the pieces that they still do have there, it doesn't concern me for this year. Now, will there be some early growing pains in the season as we see a bunch of new starters in that secondary? Potentially. This is a secondary that's been tops in the league in least amount of big plays given up for year after year. And so could there be some lumps early? Certainly. But even as I look at this receiving core, I don't think it's going to take a ton of time into the season for them to come into their own. And I'm really excited about the diversity of this receiving core and different guys being able to beat you each and every week. So I don't think it's going to be a multi-year deal where this is a rebuilding process. When you have Josh Allen and the core of veterans that this team still has, I don't think you're ever truly going to be rebuilding. You may lose some guys, but then kind of like the Chiefs 2 years ago, the guys that step in, they gain experience throughout the year to where you're peaking towards the end of the season. And now you got maybe younger, less injury prone guys, guys that are a little bit more explosive heading into the playoffs. So we'll see how this shakes out, but I do not see this as a multi-year rebuild. Next one comes from Bill's Banter. And he says, barring injury, what is the biggest obstacle the Bills have that will prevent them from having a successful season, division title, and or deep playoff run? When I look at what concerns me about this Bills team right now, and this is heading into the season, haven't seen them in full game action, it's got to be the pass rush still. And now, look, Bobby Babbage and Sean McDermott can manufacture some pass rush by moving some guys around, some confusion. But when you get to the playoffs and when you look at what's hurt the Bills the last 3 playoff losses, especially, it's been the lack of being able to pressure Patrick Mahomes, then Joe Burrow, then Patrick Mahomes with a 4-man rush. And now, can Von Miller be that piece again this year, coming back? 1 more year removed from that injury. Can he be that guy? Seems like he's more explosive out there. And so that would be huge. Greg Rousseau heading into a contract year. Can he be a top-tier pass rusher? Can Ed Oliver, who made a huge jump last year, get into the playoffs and affect the game through his pass rush? AJ Epinesa, whoever it may be, I want to see them be able to get to the passer with a 4-man rush. And that right now is my biggest concern heading into the season. Jonathan Comets asks, should we worry about Tyler Bass? All right, so Tyler Bass has an average salary per year of $5.25 million. That's made him the 4th highest paid kicker in the NFL. So anytime you raise your salary like that, you're going to be heavily scrutinized. And he's been very, very consistent throughout his career. He's not far removed from when we were calling him Bassomatic, and he was, I believe, 9 for 9 in game tying or winning field goals in the final 3 minutes of games. Well, of course, the game one against Kansas City, ruins that streak. And last year in the playoffs, he went just 2 for 5. And so I don't have serious concerns about this, but I will say, if he starts off the season slowly, I would have a concern that maybe his confidence is shook. And I hope it's not, but that would be a potential concern of mine. But I think he's super talented. He's got one of the biggest legs in the league. He's used to kicking in Buffalo, which can be a tough place to kick. So this isn't a guy you're just rushing to move on from. So I'm not overly concerned about him right now, but I would love to see him have a hot start to the season and not lose his confidence here. All right. The next one comes from David Spalding, and he said, will Cook get replaced on passing downs? And look, to me, he's a fine pass protector. Now, when you get him out on a route, he's the most explosive guy you have in that backfield. So you don't want to just simply take him off the field on passing downs because they're not always going to blitz, and you want him out on routes. I think he's a capable blocker. Ray Davis, though, he showed me a couple times in his first action, in his first preseason game, that dude has some thump to him in pass protection. Now, he got called for a penalty, and it's maybe tough to explain. I was actually trying to say this on the radio broadcast. I wish I had a teleprompter in that instance, but the Bears had 6 guys at the line of scrimmage, and a lot of times you'll bring your running back up towards the line of scrimmage, likely between the center and the guard, but he's still in the backfield far enough that he's still in a running back position, but now he's up there, and it helps you pass off if they run twists and stunts because he's not so far in the backfield and so far removed. So they moved him up there, and I guess his head was breaking the plane of the center's hip, which then constituted him as an offensive lineman and gave them an illegal formation. I've never seen that, but they called Ray Davis on it. Thank God it happened in the preseason when these games don't count against your win-loss record for the regular season, but never seen that. Teachable moment for him. I guess he cheated up too far, but he excites me as someone that could be, if they're going to go into a game plan, if a defense against the Bills is going to go in with a game plan to really try and light up Josh with the blitz, Ray Davis seems to be, and this is some of it's just size, and he's a bigger back, but he seems to be a very good pass protector. Limited basis here, but he seems to be very good. So it's not like you're going to just take Cook off the field on passing downs because you want his explosiveness, but Ray Davis seems to be your blocking back out there. Shout out to Prime, one of our sponsors. Thank you for the support as always. Go check out their collaborations they've done lately. They're all awesome. They got Aaron Judge. They got Kevin Durant. They got a WWE one they just sent to the house. My kids love it, and these are super popular. Go check them out today. Next one comes from Aaron Quinn, and he said, and we're going to switch gears a little bit here. So the next one comes from Aaron Quinn. Before the drought ended in 2017, which Bills team you played on felt the closest to breaking it? And do you think any coaches just needed one more season to get us over the hump? I think the obvious answer here is the 2014 Bills, but we blew that game at the end of the year against the Raiders. Maybe the most mad I ever was after a loss. We had the opportunity to beat the Raiders in Oakland, and then that was 2-12 at the time. And then if we won against New England, who was likely resting the starters, we could have made the playoffs, broke the drought. We blow that game at Oakland. Long flight home. But I believe that if Kyle Orton, Doug Marrone, and Jim Schwartz were all there in 2015, that might have been the time that we got over the hump, but only time knows. It's hard to say now, but Doug Marrone took off on us when Mr. Wilson passed, and the rest is history. We got Rex Ryan, and I was actually really confident heading into that next season, and we just couldn't get over the hump there either. Next one comes from Maniac Zach Sheldon. It says, what's the most ridiculous thing you overheard at the Jim Kelly Classic? So referring to the golf tournament last weekend that I referenced earlier in the podcast, nothing absolutely ridiculous. Had awesome conversations with Chris Berman at the end. Shooter McGavin and I were talking about Happy Gilmore too. Whether I get a cameo in that or not, we will see. But it was an awesome tourney, as always. And I'll tell you what, I'll never forget them surprising me with that award on Sunday night. That was really special. Matt, the bearded dog photographer, says, what is your favorite or most memorable, wow, this is so Buffalo moment outside of football from your time living and playing in the city of good neighbors? All right, so nothing really surprised me. I'd go to the grocery and, it just became routine where you'd run into someone and they tell you how long they've had season tickets. They would tell you about that, and maybe they were passed down in their family. And so it was always, expected. And it did always amaze me, though, how they recognized an offensive lineman. And still to this day, it shows the passion of the fan base, the knowledge of the fan base when they know an offensive lineman walking around in street clothes and not obviously in uniform. I'll say one thing recently that's amazed me is we live in Louisville, Kentucky right now, and my son Garrett at school, I guess people know that he's my son, and he'll tell me that multiple kids per day, especially during the football season, and these are older kids, not kids in his class that he's buddies with, and hit him with "Go Bills." And I'll tell you what, I go for carpool when they're out of uniform, and there's more Bills, there's more Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs jerseys than probably any other team, which, proximity from Louisville to Buffalo, Buffalo is not the closest team to Louisville. So that always amazes me and always fires me up. Next one is from Hansel. And he said, rank these sequels: Bad Santa 2, Like Mike 2, Street Ball, Slapshot 3, The Junior League, or The Sandlot 2. I'm going to be honest. I have not seen any of these movies. I saw Bad Santa 1, and obviously I saw The Sandlot. I never saw any of these sequels. My favorite sequels off the top of my head, I would say Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls and Major League 2. Two of my favorites. Big comedy movie guy. Last one comes from Ken Chris, and he says, what's the best wing spot in Buffalo? All right, I mentioned I just went up to 9/11 Tavern, and they're up there now. I would say, in no particular order, Barbill, Sunny Red / Mulberry, same wings, 9/11 Tavern, and Wing Nuts as a restaurant are all right there at the top. Big Tree might be my favorite establishment, and I promise I'm going to make it to Elmo's and Adolph's First Ward here soon. So I got to get to a couple more spots, and at some point I got to nail down what my favorites are. I had 9/11 Tavern on Friday, and I thought, man, I don't know if these medium wings, these Buffalo, they're hot. I don't know if these can be beat, but there might have been some recency bias because before we flew out, we hit Barbill North, and we got honey butter barbecue Cajun and mediums, and I thought, okay, now these feel like they're the best wings I've ever had. So those that's my list in really no particular order, and I know that's a cop out. All right, one more bonus question. Everything Scripted asks, what are your top 3 golf courses in Western New York? So I'm going to say in kind of the Buffalo area, Western New York, not considering, outside of it too far. And I'm going to go Craigburn, number 1, Country Club of Buffalo, number 2, and I'll go Wanaka Country Club, number 3. Wanaka, I was actually a member at when I was playing for the Bills, paid an assessment because they were going to redo the course, and then my career ended. So I've gotten to play there a couple of times, and it's an awesome track. But Craigburn and Country Club of Buffalo, just a touch above those. Thank you again for everybody tuning in this week. Hope you had fun with this solo podcast. Thank you for everybody that submitted questions. If you haven't already, please rate and review this podcast wherever you listen weekly. And also make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and then also Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. That means a lot to me. And this podcast is all about chasing rings and smashing wings. Go Bills.